We thank all of you for being here. You know, it's a little bit, I knew this was going to happen. And I forgot to bring my Kleenex up here. It really is a little bit surreal to look out and see so many faces of people that we know and love who have been, thank you, dear. So many people that have been come alongside us and be part of our journey up to this point. And I'm so grateful that you all have joined us today. We are really honored to be here with you. So thank you for coming. Today, this is our agenda for the afternoon, and today you will discover the journey to set apart. You're going to hear stories from us and stories from other people about how we got to where we are today. And you will see that God has been writing this story for many, many years. And today you will hear all about creativity from God's perspective. God is a creator, and because He created us in His image, that means we all have some form of creativity. And we believe that creativity looks different in each of us and goes well beyond the traditional sense of the word. You can be creative in whatever you do, and we are excited to see what your creativity looks like. And today, a great collaboration begins. We really believe this is just the beginning of an ongoing collaboration between us, between you, and between people we haven't even met yet.
Well, I also want to say thank you. It is such a blessing to be here today, and again, to have Colonial Presbyterian behind us and the way that they've come beside us. It's truly a miracle of God. And you'll see here in a couple slides why I'm so excited that you're all here today. But it is truly a blessing to us because we know we're not standing on this stage without your support. We love so many of you, and thank you. And if there's one thing that you take away from today, it's these three questions. Who did God create you to be? What did God create you to do? And how can we then create together? I'm also now going to share my story, and I'm only sharing my story of how I was created to be, so that it will hopefully inspire you. There's probably four main things that God seemed to always be doing that was a part of who I was. And the first one was faith. Ever since I was a little child, at the age of 4, my earliest memory, I can remember God saying that I have a purpose for you. I had no idea what that meant, but I've always just had that confidence. 2 was creativity. It was obvious that I was an artist. My parents were very supportive and encouraging in this gift, but the ironic thing is I didn't really do anything to hone that craft. I was self-taught. But I can remember before I could understand a sermon, a pastor, a Bible study, I was always looking at the Bible and growing up in the church, looking at the visuals, and they spoke to my heart. And I can remember drawing from the old masters, like this one that I gave my mom on her birthday. The third was community. I've always had this insatiable passion for community. It blew my mind that I realized not too long ago that even as a child, it bothered me so bad that all the cartoon characters that I loved lived on different formats, like books, puzzles, records, or I had to wait till a certain time of the year to see them. So, again, I had to take care of that. So all the 89 characters that were in my head, I had to not only pencil them, but mark them down permanently. And then nothing gave me more joy than to daydream about what they would all do together. The roads that they would go down that they couldn't go down alone. Again, I was a weird kid, I know. The fourth that was very obvious, as Pastor Jim mentioned, is I've always had a lot of energy. I've always been very passionate. I'm trying to tone it down today. But football was my outlet. Sports was my outlet. Again, I didn't seem to spend a lot of my time drawing. It was put to sports. And for all the obvious reasons that sports gives you, work ethic and discipline and teamwork, it was probably more important as an outlet for me because up until the age of 10, I had a fantastic childhood. But after the age of 10, there was a lot of dysfunction in our family. There was a tremendous amount of pain and a tremendous amount of hurt. And it was for reasons that were out of my control. But I stand here today, and I'm only on this stage because of that. I want to make that very clear. What was meant to be bad ended up being the biggest blessing of my life. And I say that for 2 reasons, because again, the second reason is that I think God can redeem anything. I've seen it happen. For any person, for any family. So if some of you here today, and what this ministry is about, think, oh, I'm not set apart. This isn't me. I don't hear God that way. I've got this big obstacle. I've got this guilt. I can't remove it. Please do not believe that lie. Please don't. So as I, again, was a child, I kind of was in this wilderness period, or this desert. This is what the church or the Bible says is hard times or trials. And it is completely different being in the wilderness as a child than it is as an adult. But what I learned is to hear God, to trust God. Because what I realized very quickly is that without God, I could do nothing. But with God, we could do anything. And that just became ingrained in my DNA. So again, people ask, why are you so excited? I learned very quickly to listen to God, to be with God. And again, so as I made it through this first wilderness and became a young man and was attending William Joe College, I was always a Christian. I always believed in God, but I started to backslide. And as I knew this friend of mine, and I was walking down the street, the same woman that introduced me to my wife. And she walked up to me. I still don't even know how she saw me. And she says, Brent, I heard this amazing sermon yesterday, and I think it was about you. I said, oh, really? I don't know your pastor, I don't know your church, but I'm excited to hear it. She said, Brent, no one would ever doubt your work ethic in the art room. No one would ever doubt your work ethic on the football field. But you've been given a spiritual potential, and you're not living up to it. Wow. I knew she was right. I could feel God speaking to my heart, and I couldn't move. And she went on to say, imagine you having a conversation with Jesus. And he says to you, I created you for a specific purpose that would impact many lives. And this is what you'll do. Although she didn't tell me. But then she said, and this is what you did. Not that I would lose my salvation, not that I wasn't a good person, but what hit me like a ton of bricks was that I wasn't living up to my opportunity. I understood that on the football field about wasted potential. That's not something you ever do. Jesus was not the coach I wanted to let down in this arena. So, as a child, I always knew I had a dream that I'd work at Hallmark Cards. And now I was going to put all of my talents and all of my energy, finally, for the first time, for God. And that dream came true. So for 13 years, I was usually in the middle or leading Christian product development. I got to use my talents for God, be with amazing people, take care of my family. And it was truly just such a blessing. And then about 10 years ago, I was in the sanctuary of Colonial Presbyterian Church. And I can say that that was the first time that I was given that first piece of the puzzle of why I had this purpose. Pastor Ted Nissen was speaking that day. And from the pulpit, he was quoting out of the book of John. He was actually quoting Jesus speaking to Peter. And he said 3 times, in such a controlled passion, from a podium like this, do you love me? Each time he pounded his fist. Do you love me? Do you love me? Feed my sheep. Well, it was like a lightning bolt came right from the pulpit right into my heart. I was so excited, it was like I was the only person in the sanctuary. I looked over at Kristin, and she was just trying to hold me down. As she always does. And I knew that I was supposed to feed his sheep, but I had no idea what that meant. I kind of did, but I'm an artist. I'm not a pastor. But what I did know, and the wisdom that I did have very clearly, was that I was supposed to draw portraits of all the apostles. I was going to read every book that I could get my hands on. And that's all I knew to do. And to be quite honest, I thought I'd just be doing a gallery show or an exhibit. And out of that came a journal called Journeys with the Savior. And its whole premise was that you are just as set apart, that you are just as important in your time as the apostles were in their time. Do you realize the value and impact of your life? And then there's an opportunity for you to write your story and then leave it as a keepsake for future generations. And then after that book came the vision of Set Apart. It went from drawings to a book, and now it seems to be this ministry, this opportunity to take that as a mindset. Do people really believe that they are set apart by God? Again, me understanding where I've come from, I realized that there are no coincidences. And I see so many people who are on the outside looking in who do not believe this. So anyway, threw me there. Then I started, again, I was very blessed at Hallmark, and I started to enter a second wilderness. And And again, I knew what this wilderness was like. I've been here before. And this was about 3 years ago. Again, and I thought, making it through the first wilderness, I'll never go through a wilderness again. And I'm so blessed. But again, the second wilderness happened, and it was very hard. And I just seemed to have no peace. No matter what I did, no matter how much I fasted, no matter how much I prayed, no matter what I did. And what God kept telling me over and over was this. You're very good at creative product development. You're good at using all these people to come up with something that no one's ever seen. But you need to stop focusing on product, and you need to focus on people. And you need to use those same creative abilities and help people do what I've created them to do.
So this wilderness that Brent's talking about, this second wilderness, it was very real for our family. It was a... Thank you, Kim. It was very difficult to see my husband so unsettled for so long. And as his wife, I just felt like I had to be on his side. And so, last summer, we said, we have to do something. And so together we decided that we would ask Hallmark for a leave of absence so that we could really think about what we felt like God was calling us to do and to find out if He really was calling us to this full time. And so Hallmark was gracious, very gracious, and granted that time for us. And so last summer we spent that time trying to decide, and we were just discerning, and we were talking to people, and we were praying, and we were just seeking the Lord and just trying to decide, is this really what He's calling us to do? And as God always does, you know, He puts everything in place at just the right time to speak to the people that need to hear it. And Pastor Jim was in the middle of a sermon series about making radical choices for God, about making moves that were potentially life-altering, moves that would appear completely counterintuitive to the rest of the world. And he used the analogy of flying upside down, and he kept referring to this quote by author Dallas Willard, which said, "To believe something is to act as if it is so." Well, that really hit home for us, because that is exactly what we were trying to decide. Did we really believe that God was calling us to this new thing? And if we did, were we really willing to risk it all? Were we really willing to act as if it is so? So after much thought and prayer and sweat and tears, it was obvious that this really was what He was calling us to do. So, you know, when the God of the universe says go, what are you supposed to do? You go, right? So Brent resigned from Hallmark, and we were completely trusting that this is what God had called us to do. And the most amazing thing happened. God provided. He, in every way, it has been the biggest faith-building time for me personally. I have discovered how big God really is. And He is way, way bigger than I ever imagined.